Just about to get started with the workday. Market's about to open. Of course, I wanted to cover this topic because this is the new topic that you're going to hear much about. And I did another video talking about South Africa and why you really don't hear a lot of information. Africa is not exactly the place that has the best healthcare or where people have the best access to healthcare. And if there was going to be an area where you would see the outbreak, if there was an area where you would see an outbreak, especially on a pandemic level where people would just be dropping left and right and people would be dying and losing their lives, well, then you wouldn't have to look any other place than many of these what are deemed third world countries. And of course, Africans not having access to the best of the best healthcare, as people often say that, the West or America has the best form of healthcare. But when you actually look at the statistics, you really don't see a lot of people losing their lives as a result to the current pandemic that is going on globally. Now, of course, despite Africa not having the best detection, right, because they don't have access maybe to enough swabs, or they can't do the type of testing that for example, that they can do here in the Americas or anywhere in the West, for example. But where they would note it, which I've often laid out, and I believe I did 2 or 3 videos talking about this subject, which is never covered in the mainstream media, is that if they were going to see where they would see it would be in excess deaths, because you just see people just dropping dead. And if there was no other explanation, well, then you could say it's related to this right here. And that's why you don't really hear much about places like, for example, Sweden or in Africa, because it doesn't fit in with the agenda. And where you will see this sort of videos where you'll say the South Africa variant is breaking through the Pfizer vaccine. And of course, like I said, I've said it in numerous videos to pay attention to Israel. Israel is the forerunner of what is going on. And in my opinion, it is because Israel made a deal with Pfizer that they would strike up a deal where, hey, you give me that vaccine, because maybe they didn't want to pay for it, which is my opinion, that according to what I've read, they really didn't want to pay for their vaccine, but they were like, hey, you want some data? You give us that vaccine and we'll get you that data real quick, which is why you saw places like Israel, they were in a hurry to give everybody their shot and then quickly come and they were like 3 cheers for the vaccine. And then of course, not too long later, they're like, oh shit, the variant is getting through. And this is what you see also in other places, for example, like in Chile, where it says that Chile has one of the world's best rates, right? They've got one of the world's best rates, but then they're like, well, wait, why are we seeing a surge? Why are we seeing a surge? And I talked about this in relation to, for example, in nursing homes. But when you actually look at the details of what's going on in places, for example, like in Chile, now this article is as of the 19th. This is a very new article from 2021. And then when you actually look at the information coming out of Chile, you're like, oh yeah, look, the cases are on the rise, despite the number of individuals who have gotten the vax. But what we're going to look at is we're actually going to take a look at the statistics of, you can see the total number of cases, right? It's 1.4. So, and then as you can see, the number of recovered. So of all the people who have gotten the virus, by comparison to the people who have gotten the virus and passed through, it's in the area of over 90%. So it's 1.07 divided by 1.14, and then you can see the recovery rate. So overwhelmingly, at this point that I've pulled up this data, the recovery rate for those who have been infected, according to their data, is roughly almost 94%, right? But when you look at the statistics of those who have lost their life, it's only about 2%. And let's just say we just take it 100% face value. We'll just pretend that the 25,000 who have passed away really did have the virus and they really did die 100% as a result of the virus, irrespective of age, medical history, doctor mistakes, etc. Let's just pretend it's 2%, which means that overwhelmingly 98% of the people who do get infected come across the other side and they live and they can go about their lives. But when you actually learn, now this is according to the cases, and I've talked frequently about cases and how easy it is to manipulate a PCR by just literally expanding the number of cycles that you do, and it's just basically a magnification, right? So when they cycle the PCR, it's just basically, in essence, the gist of it is just magnifying what is found on the PCR swab. And so, of course, the more you magnify something closer and closer and closer and closer, the more likely you are to pick up particles. It doesn't say whether those particles are alive or dead. It just says this is what we found of this particular, and of course the PCR will find multiple forms of different bacteria and viruses, but they hone in only on that one particular one, and then they say you got it, right? They just say you got it, even if you have no symptoms, even if whatever brought you into the hospital has nothing to do related to respiratory. And so even if whatever brought you into the hospital has absolutely nothing to do with respiratory, but you did test positive for this particular disease, then they just say, well, you got it, and this is what caused your death. Whether you died with it or as a result of it, it doesn't really matter, because they just kind of all lump it into the same statistical data. Which is why when we actually, even though we see the spike in cases, when we actually look at the deaths, you see the deaths are almost non-existent. Yes, there was a little bit of a spike here, and that can be in relation to multiple different variables, not understanding what to do, putting everybody on a ventilator very early, not understanding what medications to give, perhaps maybe not enough personnel. Some people don't show up to work, so you have less staff to take care of more people, etc. But then you see it kind of very quickly over time, it just seems to taper off. And this, of course, is the looking at the 7-day. So even though we might see cases just all-time highs, but the outcome is actually better, as you can see. Not really seeing the sort of deaths that you would look for. But this is the sort of information that unfortunately we're not getting from local media, whether it's your mainstream media or even on social media. It's just a lot of this fear mongering. So they might talk about 40 people dead or 100 people dead, but what they don't skew the information to saying, well, according to what's going on in Chile, 98% of the people who get it fare just fine. They get the virus and they pass through it. Or in the UK, where it was like 98.6%. Or in the US, where overwhelmingly for anybody that was under the age of, I believe, 60, that it was like in the 99+ percentile of individuals who get it. Some individuals don't even know that they got it. But this is unfortunate as the reality moving forward. So pay attention. Like I said, I've said it numerous times, to pay attention to what is going on here, because this is the poster boy. So a lot of the misinformation, if you really want to talk about misinformation that's coming out, it's really coming out of this area right here. And it's because it fits in with the overall agenda to keep you fearful, to keep you focused on, are you going to lose your life? Are you going to end up being sick? You know, we often hear now they refer to these things as breakthrough, where even if you got it, even if you were the person who actually went out there and got it, now they're saying, well, hey, there's a variant out there. We might have to lock you down all over again. Or maybe you need a third or a fourth or a fifth one. And this is to keep you preoccupied in here so that other things that are taking place you don't focus on. Just kind of like a magician. A magician serves to distract you. They put flair and they put what they want you to see, so that they can distract you from what's really going on behind the scene, or what's really going on right in front of you, as that, that guy that bumps into you and you, next thing you know, hey, where's my wallet, right? Because it served as a distraction. It served as a distraction. Or like when they do that trick where they steal your watch and they're like, oh, let me see your hand. Your hands are really soft. And the next thing you know, your watch is gone. It's because it all serves as a distraction.